Star Wars: The Heart of the Jedi by Kenneth C. Flint. Chapter 10. The big hands adeptly fitted a leather sheath about the leg and fastened its straps, covering the limb from ankle to thigh. "You're sure this is necessary?" Luke Skywalker asked as he stood watching the big warrior named Jatal Or armoring his leg. "Absolutely, Pale One," the other assured as he buckled last strap to a wide belt around Luke's waist. "The beast's bristly hide would sand the trousers and then the skin from your leg in moments without it. Is it comfortable now?" The young Jedi moved the leg. "It's all right, but call me Luke. That's my name." "If you wish, Pale Luke." Jatal Or set about fastening a second sheath around the young Jedi's other leg. While he worked, Luke looked across the open area beside the central pit, to where the giant's champion stood. A few other warriors of the clan stood around him, watching him in like preparation, but all save the interpreting one seemed to be keeping a safe distance from the strange outsider. Dovra Akru had shed his outer long robe. He stretched his massive body up, spreading his arms. It was an impressive display of size and reach, Luke evaluated. Jatal Or straightened after finishing the second leg. He handed two other leather pieces to Luke. "Here," he said. "The arms must be done, too. See to that while I gather the rest." He strode off. Luke began to pull one of the leather protectors up an arm to shield him from his wrist to past his elbow. As he worked, another warrior detached himself from the watching group to approach the young Jedi. He was a lean and battered figure with a ragged tear in one cheek of his mask, an eyepiece knocked askew, and some head spikes broken. Apparently braver than the rest of his folk, he moved up close to Luke. The Jedi paused and looked quizzically at the being. "I've awaited this chance to speak to you alone," the man said in a low, husky tone, looking around in a cautious way to see if anyone was watching. "You speak too?" asked a startled Luke. "Careful," the man warned. "None here know I have the speech. They must not know." "Why?" "Because I am not like the others. I have gone out from the clans and lived with your kind. They would not trust me if they knew. But I have learned acceptance. I do not wish to be your enemy. I most certainly do not wish to see you die, but this fight, it will surely kill you." "I'm not dead yet," Luke told him. "A matter of time only," the other said grimly. "Have you ever ridden on a bantha before?" "Only once," Luke admitted. "It was tame enough." "On Tatooine, a tame bantha is a bantha who has bonded with its rider. If you came across one here, its rider must have perished, and the beast was wandering in search of him. For this contest, you will be offered an unbonded bantha, which is quite different, and a most difficult beast, impossible for an unskilled rider, and for you to fight from its back as well." He shook his head. "No, you must use the power of the Force to aid you." "The Force?" Luke looked at him with surprise. "But how do you—" The man held up a hand and looked around him, and then leaned in to speak even more quietly. "I told you, I have not stayed so separate from your world as the rest here. I know of the young Skywalker who went off to become a Jedi. That also is why I so much wish to help you. I realize you might be of great boon to us. You could help to lead us, at last in a new way. But to survive to do so, you must first use your wizard's skill to win." "I can't do that," Luke said. "You must," the man argued. "Even if some way you could control the bantha, Dovra Akru will be a fierce opponent. Why, for him to become Banthame champion. To become the champion, I think? Yeah, that's a really weird typo. Of such a warrior race should speak of what an outstanding fighter he must be." Luke glanced across to the giant figure again. "I had thought of that," he said, then shrugged. Even so, I can't cheat. I'm a sworn Jedi Knight. I have to stay true to my principles. I won't use the Force to take unfair advantage. Not even to make more equal your chances in such an unfair contest? Look, I can't gauge how much it's going to be that, Luke told him. No matter what you say, and I sure won't risk using any tricks that might make it easier for me to kill him. So it's got to be a straight fight. No extra help at all. You are a fool, then, the warrior said in frustration. He considered, then tried again. Well, if you will not act to improve your chances, perhaps you will let me do something for you. Luke eyed him narrowly. What do you mean? I can at least see that you have an easier ride, if you'll only listen and do what I say. I'll listen, Luke said guardedly, but no promises. Very well. When they bring up the banthas, you will have to choose one. That is your right. Look for one with a twisted horn. That one should be your pick of mounts. It will be the most docile, the most easy to direct. Do this one thing. You will be able to have some chance in the fight, anyway. Luke thought it over, then nodded. All right, I'll go for that. But if this is some kind of trap, I could trap you no more tightly than you have already trapped yourself, young Jedi, the other pointed out. I assure you, I very much wish to see you stay alive. His eye was caught by the figure of Jatal Or coming back toward them. Ah, and now I must go, he said hurriedly. Remember, none must know I've talked with you of this. He scuttled away back into the crowd, vanishing as Jatal Or reached Luke. The tall warrior now carried a chest plate of thick leather, a pointed skull cap of beaten gold metal, and a curved stick. The stick was typical of the instruments all the warriors carried, knobbed on one end and fitted with cutting blades and a long point at the other. We call this Gaderfi, the interpreter explained, dropping the other equipment. A gaffy stick, to you. In the contest, it will serve you in two ways. He pointed to the blade end. With this end, you may either slash or jab. He made some swings and thrusts with it in demonstration, then handed the instrument to Luke. The Jedi strung it around, first tentatively, then with swiftly growing skill. The other watched him, clearly impressed. Not too bad, Orr judged. He shook his head. A pity. You might have learned to use it well, had you any more time left to you. And you don't think I have? Said Luke. I have seen him fight others. Oh, jeez, no. I have seen him fight others, Orr said. I have fought him myself. He touched his shoulder. The deep scar from that is with me still. I think there are none who can beat that one. You know, you people are really building my confidence, Luke said as he looked again at the stick. But you said this had two purposes. What's the other? The club end is to control the beast you ride. You have no other means. So how does it work? Very simple. The bantha is far from a stupid beast, but it is most stubborn. To make it turn to the right, you strike the left side of the head. To go left, strike the other. Use some power in it. They also have a most thick skull. How about going and stopping? Slapping its rear with the stick will goad it forward. Rapping the top of the skull makes it stop. Plan your moves well ahead if you can. The beast is slow to react. That is where the rider's skill is most important. The warrior looked around at a low, bleeding sound. Oh, here they come. Luke looked around too. Up a ramp from their underground corral, 2 banthas were plodding, driven by several warriors with the sticks. They were herded to a wide spot beside the central pit. Closer examination of the animals did little to dispel the first impression of their ugliness. They were tall, broad behemoths, their thick legs, long tails, and hulking bodies covered with wiry masses of hair. The blunt muzzles of their massive heads sported short tusks, and oozing nostrils flanked by tiny eyes. On either side of the wide skulls, set high and well forward, were the tight spirals of large, hard-headed bones, as if budding were the chief weapons of the beasts. And the bantha's smell was in full keeping with its looks. Even out in the open, their pungent, gamey odor was strong in the air. As others of the tribe gathered around, the Otal made his appearance, moving to a spot before the herd. His champion at once joined him, and, at Orr's direction, Luke did too. "You must now choose your banthas," the Otal formally announced to Luke through his translator. Dovra Akru quickly looked them over and pointed out a broad-chested gray fellow. Luke took longer, looking them over carefully. None with an odd horn was visible at first, but then one bellowed and moved aside as another behind shouldered by it to view. This one had a horn, whose outward skew made it different from any of the rest. Luke pointed it out. "I'll take that one." "That," said the Otal. He stared hard at the rather small, rather nondescript animal, and shrugged. "Very well." The chieftain turned to face the two contestants, speaking gravely now as Jatal Orr interpreted. "You will fight within our ring. Try to break out of it means death." "I don't intend to run," Luke assured. "We will see," said the chieftain. "You will fight from Banthabak until one or another is unseated. The battle may then be continued on foot by both, if the remaining one chooses." "If not?" asked Luke. "The one still mounted may choose to simply run the other down. Either way, the contest is not concluded until one can fight no longer. Do you understand?" "It's clear enough," said Luke. "I'm ready." "Then mount your banthas," the Otal ordered. Luke and Dovra Akru donned the chest plates and helmets, then went to the animals. Luke stepped to the towering side of his beast, looked up it, took a grip of the bristling hair. He gave a grimace of pain. He gripped the beast's hair higher up and hauled himself the rest of the 8 feet, getting onto its back. Here, he looked around to see that his opponent was already astride his own mount, straddling its shoulders, one leg on either side of the thick neck. He quickly assumed the same position. The flat skull top and curled masses of horn were just before him. Meanwhile, 24 of the warriors had mounted other banthas. With shouts and energetic swats of their sticks, they sent the beasts shambling forward. The mounted warriors spread apart, riding out past the last of the dwelling pits and into a stretch of level, hard-packed ground beyond. Here they formed into a rough circle, some 200 yards around. "It is time, Pale Luke," said Jatal Orr, handing the gaffi stick up to the young Jedi. "May your fight be noble, and your end an honorable one." "Thanks, I think," said Luke. He reached down for the stick, firmly resettled himself, and looked around to the Otal. The stocky chieftain looked from his champion to Luke. He nodded at their readiness. He lifted an arm again. He stood that way a moment, poised between the two beasts, while combatants and onlookers watched expectantly. Then the arm dropped. Dovra Akru swung his stick back and gave his bantha several taps on the rump. The animal lumbered forward. Luke followed suit, and his beast fell in beside the champions. The two mounts walked out to the center of the ring. Here the huge warrior struck the left side of his head, just behind the horn. It turned away at a right angle. Luke watched his actions and tapped his own bantha on the right side. A look of relief came from his face as it readily complied, turning the opposite way. As the two neared the cordon of warriors at either side of the ring, Dovra Akru turned his mount again. Again Luke followed, his steering tap obeying immediately. "Not a boy," he murmured to the beast. "Just keep going along with me." As the two beasts swung to face each other, champion and then Jedi tapped atop their skulls. The banthas stopped at once. For a moment, the two riders stared across at one another. Luke intense, Dovra apparently at ease. Then the champion's mouth opened with a near-splitting trill. He gave his mount a great smack across the rear. It bellowed and lunged forward. Luke urged his own beast forward, and it responded instantly. Soon, both animals were heading towards one another at a ponderous, earth-shaking lope. They plunged together on a collision course. While they neared, the giant warrior stayed intent on Luke, weapon held ready, and showed no sign of wavering. The novice Luke held on as long as he could, but when a crash seemed almost inevitable, he tapped his bantha's skull on the right side. It veered away with an instant to spare. He avoided collision, but his brake gave Dovra Akru the advantage. The sharp turn threw Luke sideways. He grabbed the coarse neck hair to keep his balance, lowering his guard. As the champion swept by, he struck out at the vulnerable young Jedi. The edge of one blade struck Luke's shoulder, slicing across it. The keen edge drew a line of blood there as it ripped through both the tunic and the flesh of the biceps underneath. It was only a surface wound, but the pain and surprise made Luke grunt and jerk away. The champion's reflexes were lightning ones. As soon as his bantha was past Luke's, he was whacking it around in a hard right turn. It wheeled tightly and swiftly for such a bulky beast. Luke, momentarily distracted by his wound, was slow to bring his own gaffi stick into play. The advantage might have once more fallen Dovra Akru, but Luke's bantha seemed to anticipate his needed move. Without direction, it swung itself around in the same direction, to face the giant warrior's beast squarely again. Once more, they plunged in head-to-head, but this time the quickly learning Luke held on to the course as stubbornly as his opponent. The beasts charged together, seemingly ready to butt heads in a monumental crash, neither rider giving way. But the animal's own sense of self-preservation avoided a collision. Both veered slightly away at the last second, sweeping by each other so closely that their bristling coats rasped together. Again, Dovra Akru took a passing stroke at Luke. Prepared, the Jedi parried, slamming his weapon away with a power that sent the champion jerking back. When the two banthas swept apart, the warrior swiveled his head around to stare back at Luke, in a gesture clearly indicating surprise. This slender, pale one was showing himself to be a fair opponent. Now, made aware that his first tactic would not work again, Dovra Akru swiftly shifted to another. Waiting to see which way Luke turned, he this time urged his mount around in an opposite wheel. He slapped its rump hard and trilled sharply in its ear to goad it on. The beast charged ahead with a burst of greater speed. As his mount came around, Luke realized the champion's new ploy too late. He swung his stick over to prod his bantha the other way, but not in time to keep his opponent from moving behind him. Instead, he slapped the beast to greater speed in an attempt to keep ahead. Soon it was loping around in a wide curve, just within the ring of mounted warriors. But the big warrior's bantha was running in a smaller arc, within Luke's, and it was drawing closer. Dovra Akru swung out at Luke as soon as he came in range. He leaned out across the space between the plunging beasts to launch a salvo of savage blows. Luke found himself hard-pressed to keep his seat and fight to the rear while half-twisted around. He parried the blows as best he could with one hand while hanging on with the other. One of the champion's cuts slipped past his guard and slashed down his back, laying open a flap of both cloth and skin. Another clipped the jutting point from the top of Luke's metal cap. Finally, Dovra Akru managed to swing his weapon on under and up to lock a blade behind one of Luke's. With a two-handed twist and a yank, the powerful warrior tore the weapon free of the young Jedi's grasp. It lifted high and flew off far, turning lazily end over end to land point down, half burying itself in the ground. The champion gave a loud bellow of triumph. His gaffi stick went up to strike again, its bright blades glinting in the sun.